At the turn of the 20th century, the world was changing rapidly. Cities were growing, technology was advancing, and traditional ways of life were being challenged by modern pressures. Yet alongside the rise of industry and progress, many communities sensed a spiritual emptiness. In Wales, a small nation on the western side of Great Britain, people filled the coal mines and factories, their lives marked by long hours of labor and deep hardship. Wales had long been a land of song and chapel worship, but by 1900 many felt that religion had grown formal and cold, lacking the power to truly transform lives. It was in this atmosphere of longing that a young man named Evan Roberts emerged, a figure whose life would ignite one of the most powerful revivals in modern history. Roberts was born in 1878 in the mining town of Lohore, South Wales. His family was poor, and like his father, he went to work in the coal mines as a boy. The conditions were harsh, but even in that dark world underground, Roberts was known to carry a Bible and read it during his breaks. From an early age, he developed a reputation for prayer and devotion. He often spent long hours crying out to God, convinced that he was being prepared for something extraordinary. By his early 20s, he had left the mines to pursue ministry, enrolling at a small preparatory school for preachers in Newcastle Emlyn. Friends remembered his burning desire for revival, a conviction that God was about to move in a way that would shake the nation. The breakthrough came in 1904. During a prayer meeting, Roberts uttered a simple cry, "Bend me, O Lord." This prayer captured the essence of his heart, a willingness to be completely yielded to God. Soon afterward, he began preaching in small chapels, sharing a message that was not polished or intellectual, but carried with it deep urgency. He urged people to confess every sin, remove anything doubtful from their lives, obey the Holy Spirit without delay, and openly declare Christ. What followed surpassed all expectation. Congregations were overcome with conviction. People wept, repented, and reconciled with one another. Taverns closed as men and women sought prayer instead of drink. Families restored broken relationships, and miners returning from work sang hymns through the streets of their villages. Within months, the movement known as the Welsh Revival swept across the country. It spread from village to village, chapel to chapel, until nearly every part of Wales felt its power. Services often had no program. Anyone might rise to sing a hymn, pray, or testify. Roberts himself sometimes remained silent, allowing others to lead, yet those who heard him described a spiritual authority that filled the room. The revival was not limited to one denomination, but united Baptists, Methodists, Anglicans, and Presbyterians in a shared experience of God's presence. By the end of 1905, it was reported that more than 100,000 people had come to faith or renewed their commitment to Christ. Newspapers carried daily accounts, marveling at communities transformed in ways they could scarcely explain. The influence of the Welsh Revival did not end in Wales. Through the Telegraph and international newspapers, stories spread to Europe, America, and beyond. Christians everywhere read about the spiritual fire in South Wales and began praying for the same in their own nations. In Los Angeles, intercessor Frank Bartleman was among those deeply moved by the reports, writing that what God had done in Wales stirred him to believe for revival in California. His prayers, and those of many others, set the stage for the Azusa Street Revival in 1906 under the leadership of William J. Seymour. Though Evan Roberts and Seymour never met, the Welsh Revival played a direct role in inspiring the outpouring at Azusa Street. In this way, a movement that began in the chapels of Wales became part of a global stream of revival that still flows today. For Roberts himself, the burden of leading such a movement took a heavy toll. Constant meetings, public criticism, and the intensity of revival life left him physically and emotionally exhausted. By 1906, he withdrew from public ministry and lived much of the rest of his life quietly, devoting himself to prayer. Some saw this as a disappointment, but others recognized that the fruit of the revival was never dependent on Roberts alone. The movement had already taken root in the hearts of thousands who would carry it forward. The influence of those transformed lives could not be measured by his later years of seclusion. Evan Roberts lived until 1951, passing away at the age of 72. He was buried at Moriah Chapel in Lauchor, the same place where the revival had first ignited nearly 50 years earlier. Though he left behind no denomination, no organization, and few personal writings, his impact cannot be overstated. The Welsh Revival changed the spiritual climate of an entire nation and inspired believers around the world. Its echoes reached across the Atlantic, linking directly to the awakening at Azusa Street and the birth of the modern Pentecostal movement. Today, more than a century later, Roberts's cry of "Bend me" still speaks with power. His story is a reminder that great movements of God often begin not with grand strategies, but with the surrender of a single life. From the coal mines of South Wales to the mission halls of Los Angeles, the flame that burned in Evan Roberts's heart helped light fires that continue to blaze across the world. His legacy is not measured by organizational success or public fame, but by the revival that reshaped history and by the global movement that can trace part of its roots back to his obedience. Evan Roberts remains a key figure in the story of modern Christianity, a quiet young collier whose life of prayer became the spark of a worldwide revival.